Wow.
Here he is. It's the legend, Alex Gooch, joining me today.
The man, the myth, the legend.
The
So I'm
legend.
told. So I'm
Yeah.
told. I've been called worse things, I'll be honest.
Yeah, 100%. Yes, you've definitely been called worse things. So we're doing a live stream today about quick and compliant interim inspection reports. But before we dive into that, we're just going to wait a minute or so to see if anyone logs in. So if anyone didn't know, we was at the ALA exhibition and conference earlier this week. So in your opinion, Alex, how do you think it went?
I really enjoyed the event, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
I think the turnout from what they were expecting was slightly less in terms
Mm.
of delegate numbers, but certainly from our perspective, it sort of felt like that meant that everybody that was there really wanted to be there. So then it
Yes.
meant it was a really engaging conference.
Yeah.
From what I hear about the speakers, that was all really high quality. Obviously, the conversations that we had with delegates throughout, both prospective clients and the good thing about these sort of conferences is we get to actually see the people that we sort of talk to on the phone, the
Yeah.
accounts that we look after,
Yeah.
and get a really good conversation. And it's always nice to hear our current users come over and give us feedback as well,
Yeah.
whether that's good or bad.
Yeah.
Obviously, the bad is few and far between.
It was it was
Um,
it was good how what we said as well. It's like when because we've not seen a lot of people in person or physically, and we said, "Oh, you look taller on a lot
you,
on a
you're not you're not
Microsoft
you're not
Teams."
you're
Or
not just
yeah,
shoulders and a head.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, you've actually got
Yeah,
limbs to walk on. Yeah, yeah,
you've got shoulders down. Yeah,
yeah.
I get that a lot with being 6'3". People
Yes,
always then have to take a stand back and go, "Oh, okay,"
yeah, yeah.
not just looking straight at a camera now.
Yeah. Well, I'm 6'4". No, not really.
Yeah,
I would.
let me find a picture of me and you side by side, shall I,
Yeah,
Mitch?
yeah. No, no, no. Ironically, when we was at the ALA conference, a lot of people actually came up to us and said that they just use us for interim inspections, and ironically, that's what we're covering off today.
It was almost like we planned it.
Exactly, exactly. So before we get started, if you want to do a quick introduction of yourself, Mr. Alex, on what you
Yeah,
do at
so
Inventory Hive.
I'm Alex Gooch. Obviously, you can see my email address on the screen. I head up our build to rent team here at Inventory Hive. So all of the build to rent clients, so blocks of apartments that obviously need to be always more. There's almost a key focus on compliance in those areas there.
Yeah,
Interim inspections have a lot of weight. And again, from a resident satisfaction perspective as well. So I head up that team there, and also overseeing the general customer success and the onboarding of our clients as well.
brilliant. And quick intro about me. I'm Mitch Hanley. I'm marketing manager here at Inventory Hive. I also help with some of the customer onboarding as well, and all the conferences and events we do, and all social media kind of things. So yes, that's we're trying to do a lot more of these live streams just to help engage with our users a bit more as well. So so a lot of the things about interim inspection reports is that I notice when people are actually coming on the stand at ALA, they actually call them something different every time. Like someone
So,
goes, "Oh, do you do interim inspections?" And the next person says, "Do you do property management visits?" Or
property
so,
management visits, midterms, interims.
yeah,
Obviously, we refer to them as interim inspection reports, but
yeah,
everybody's got a different terminology. But in a sense, if you like, it's going in mid tenancy and making sure everything's okay. It's a good
yeah,
touch point with your residents, and it's also a good opportunity to help alleviate any maintenance issues before they get too bad. So, like
yeah,
a dripping tap, for example, you can catch before it's a broken tap, and then all
yes,
of a sudden you've got to replace it. That's
exactly that.
essentially the key point of them.
And it also helps because you're doing this with, well, not with the tenant present, but it's like it means it can't get any worse at the end of the tenancy. So it's important to raise those maintenance issues mid tenancy, and then they get raised at, well, obviously at checkout, then it saves the tenant getting stung at checkout as well. So um, if you want to share your screen, Alex, if you want to start a bit of a demonstration as such,
Yeah, absolutely. Just
while Alex is getting that set up. Like I said, it's quite important to do those interim inspections or property management visits, because one, it helps make sure that there's no tenancy breaches or the maintenance issues are up to date. So let me just add your.
I
There we
was going
go.
to
So
say,
I've got you.
have you
Yeah,
got my screen share up now?
yeah.
So I mean,
Screen shares up now. So and
actually,
we're just going to show you today how you can quickly create those um, compliant interim inspection reports, because
yeah. So
and I
what
know a lot of agents find it they do get a backlog quickly. So hopefully this way can help it make it go as quick as possible. So
Yeah, I mean, we've got a couple of different options as well on how to actually complete an interim inspection. I mean, I don't want to get bogged down too much today with any confusing factors. We'll go with the more straightforward, simple, traditional approach of you are going into the property and to make sure everything's okay. However, Inventory Hive do have the facility to send this over to, so you would, in theory, complete a phone call ahead of time, compile a report, and then the tenant could sign off and submit any photos. That was brought to light with the obviously COVID-19 and social distancing measures, that can be practiced. But obviously, feel free to check out our website or email us after this video to learn a little bit more about that. But what I've got on my screen here is just an example of an interim inspection report. Now, obviously, because this is a sample, it's probably a little bit heavier than what you might traditionally see. Fingers crossed you don't have too many issues to actually raise. But what you can see on the front page here is any maintenance action that is actually required can be summarised on that front page. And then you can also attribute any responsibility as well. So, if you're an agent managing a property for a landlord, for example, you can say whether it's the landlord's responsibility to go in and fix whatever it might be. So, if I were to just scroll down, you can see here that there's UPVC panels to the rear of the property. They're loose. They've become displaced. That's a
yeah,
landlord's
that
responsibility.
that's quite key, because obviously on page one it clearly highlights the maintenance issues. So when the landlord or maintenance team or whoever views that report, they can clearly see the outline on page one. They can see further details as they go down. But I suppose the other key thing as well is there's no point inspecting every item in the property. It's just those that need attention, basically.
Exactly that. If you were to go through, and I find this a lot, if you were to actually go through to um, complete every item within a inspection report, you might as well be doing a full blown interim.
Yes.
And I do see that quite a lot with some of our clients. They sort of fall foul to that. It doesn't need to be that. So what I'm going to do just quickly on screen now, you can see I've got my demonstration account open. You can see that I've moved into this property multiple times,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
in
Or you've got a lot of Alex Goochers live in that area.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not quite a common name, is it?
Yeah.
But if you were to, obviously, you've got a resident that's moved in. They've had a check-in inventory when they moved in. So I moved in on this one on the 23rd of November, as you can see from here. Now, if I were to be going into this property again now, I can just simply add a report, add an interim visit. As we said before, multiple terminologies that you can use, but interim visit, midterm inspection, it's all sort of the same thing. And then what I would always advise is we've got a list of compliance checklist questions, and I would always start this report from scratch. One of the
Yes.
beauties of Inventory Hive is that you can copy contents from previous reports. But if we were to select the previous check-in inventory, for example, that would then have a list of all of your door frame skirting boards, your walls, your ceilings. You don't need that for an interim
Yeah.
inspection. You just need a general overview.
I suppose the other thing is as well, obviously there's a key point there where it says, would you like to complete some compliance checklist questions? The key thing as well is when you set up your property on Inventory Hive, those compliance questions are tailored for each region or country as such. So if your property is in Scotland, those questions will be those Scottish legislation, for example, or if it was in Wales, it'll be Welsh, etc. So that's already set up for you on Inventory Hive, depending on where the property is.
Yeah, that's a great point, Mitch, to mention. But what I'll just do here is obviously you can see the previous setup of this property, and with this being a demonstration account, it's a little bit on the messy side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete off some of these rooms. So let's just assume there isn't a living room lounge. We've just got the living space. As I say, because it's a demonstration account, I've used it multiple times. So let me just cancel
Uh,
on that and remove off a couple of the rooms for you. Sorry, I'm peering over my laptop so that I
that's
can
all right.
actually see the screen. So if I just confirm the selection on there, what you can then do is obviously reorder these to the order that you would walk round. That's important when you actually flick to your iPad tablet if you're going into the property, just because then when you click save and next, it takes you to the first, like on the last item of the entrance hallway, would take you straight into the living room space.
Yeah, the interface, just for anyone watching, the interface that you can see on the screen here is exactly the same on the Inventory Hive app, which is free to download on Apple and um, Android devices. So
Yeah, so generally what I would say when we're completing
I was just about to say, Alex, what's your top tip for when you're completing these reports, as you was
It's
about
like
to say? So
we're in sync.
yeah,
Um, when I were to complete an interim inspection report, generally speaking, it's going to be clean and tidy. There's going to be no tenancy agreement breaches evident, and there's generally going to be no maintenance issues raised because the tenant, the resident, will have already rang you and told you if there was a problem. Generally speaking, not all, obviously, but what we do have is the facility to actually clone that item description. So I've done that in the first room. So now when I go through, that's attributed to every other room within that
yeah,
property. So now basically I've already got set up my full interim inspection. So now it's just a case of go to the property and make sure everything's okay.
yeah.
Um,
You set your description based on the property being absolutely fine. And
yes.
then if you do go in and it's absolutely fine, then you just basically need to answer the compliance and sign it off. But obviously, if you do find a maintenance issue or tenancy breach, you can add that in, no problem.
And I'll show you how to do that in just a second. But what I'm going to do now is just whilst I've got my iPad open, I'm going to go into the interim inspection just on here, if I can find it. As I say, I've moved in multiple times, so just searching Alex Gooch on the on the system's
Yes.
a little bit tricky. But if I were to now have my interim inspection, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to snap a very quick picture in my living space area. And then when I go through, you'll see how this works.
Yep.
So if I snap in a couple of pictures and then save that item, save and next, you'll see the way that our cloud-based system works. So now that's already got in my pictures. So that's my current setup. That's why
Yep.
when I was peering over my laptop, you could
Yep.
see. Um, so you can see that's how easy it is to then add a photo. So then if I were to just come out of this report altogether, and I'll show you how to raise maintenance issues in just a second and the compliance bits. But if I then go into the preview of this report and scroll down, you can already see your living space is clean and tidy, no tenancy agreement breaches evident, no maintenance issues raised, and then the pictures, they're
Yep.
time and date stamped, and
Yep.
that's real time. So in
That,
theory, if I'd just gone to the property and I've taken those photos, it's done.
yeah. That's quite key as well, is because like in the descriptions as well, there's really no point adding any more than that if it's in a good condition, because there's no point putting the colour of the walls or the floors or anything like that, because like I said, it's clean and tidy, no maintenance issues, no tenancy breaches either. So
Yeah.
it's as simple as that. But
Now, let's just say that I wanted to raise a maintenance issue. So I've gone into the kitchen, I've removed the comment that I'd quoted before
yep,
of there being no maintenance issues raised. Let's just say that the kitchen extractor hood isn't working. So the extractor cooker hood, not responsive when switched, for example. Um, I'd then just add a quick snap of that. Obviously, whilst I'm on site, I can be doing this on my iPad as well, my iPad, iPhone, Android tablets, and
yep,
devices. As we said before, so let's just change our condition to poor. I can then say that this needs repairing. As we said, we can attribute a responsibility. We might not
yep,
need to. We can just leave that blank. We can also attribute an estimated cost. Again, you don't have to, but you can do. But let's just put £100 in, just as an example, to repair an extractor hood. And then you just click done. So
yep,
that again now is we've got our kitchen, the general overview, and also an item that's been added in where we want to highlight some maintenance. So if I clicked on preview, that is now sitting at the top as the maintenance action that's required. Your extractor hood, it needs repairing. It's going to be £100.
yep. Absolutely brilliant. I think when raising your maintenance issues, Alex, I think one of the most popular features we have in Inventory Hive is that we've actually got a free integration with Fixflo. So
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone's heard of Fixflo, but Fixflo is a maintenance platform And our integration with Fixflo means that when you do raise those maintenance issues, you can actually send those directly to your Fixflo account, literally by a click of a button. So when you saw on the previous screen when Alex was typing in or raising that maintenance issue, there would be a button underneath that would say send to Fixflo. So if you click that button, that will get sent to your Fixflo account straight away.
Yeah, and then that
So
just drops into your Fixflo feed, so your maintenance team can pick it up. You don't need to double it. There's no double entry. You don't need
yeah,
to have different departments talking to each other. A lot can get lost in communication sometimes as well in email chains and WhatsApp messages or whatever it might be.
yeah,
But then that way, you've literally just ticked it off. You've sent it to your Fixflo account. Your maintenance team or whoever monitors the Fixflo feed, they can just follow it from there.
yeah. Before you just go on to the compliance, Alex, another tip that Richard Abbott's gave me this tip actually about doing interims is that sometimes, obviously, when you go in, the tenants are moved into the property and they'll have a lot of personal possessions in the property or any letters or anything like that. So when taking those general overview photos or you're taking a photograph of a maintenance issue, just be careful not to capture any of those personal belongings or, like I said, any you might have accidentally caught a picture of their address or letter on the side with any details. So that's probably number one tip for me for GDPR and all that
Yeah,
boring kind of
exactly.
stuff. So yeah,
All the fun police stuff, but it is
yeah,
actually very important. So
yes,
I was
so
talking to a client recently, and they've got a whole team that monitor sort of GDPR and such like. And I was talking to their head of operations, and they were actually like, "Alex, you're going to have a meeting with our fun police before we can, before
yeah,
we can proceed."
yeah,
And
yeah,
it did make me chuckle. I'll be honest.
yeah. So before we go on to the compliance, then, Alex. So well, not before. In fact, Alex, do you want to show us the compliance steps? So
I,
Alex has
I,
already gone
I can
through
do that.
um, how you can create your report and raise your maintenance issues. And now we're going to explain why the compliance is key.
This compliance checklist question set, it summarizes it. So again, as an agent, if you're sharing your reports with your landlords, which I would expect you to be, one, it sort of helps you focus an element because obviously you're charging a fee for your management visits
Yeah,
and your general management of that property anyway. It sort of summarizes everything that you've done, everything that you're monitoring, and then when you share that with the landlord, they're like, "Oh, okay, I wouldn't have thought to ask 24 hours in advance if I could go," for example. So it shows that you really know your stuff and you're on the ball. And equally, then you've got evidence in the future, should you ever need it, that all of this was documented.
yeah,
So, was the gas safety certificate received within the last 12 months? It gets you to think, as an agent doing the report, hang on a minute, have I got a valid gas safety certificate? I'm sure you have. I'm sure
yeah,
you guys are already on the ball with that. But then you've got evidence based within that report, completed on that date, that it was up to date. We default the questions to where they should be. Don't get me wrong.
positive
That's
answers.
positive answers, yeah, and that's again for your convenience, just because we know that the majority of agents, they're on the ball.
Yeah,
They've already got all of this sort of sorted. The only things to note with that respect, so again, you can see whether rental payments are up to date. You can summarise that to your landlord. The only things to note is sort of evidence of pets or smoking. You might have permitted that within your
yeah.
tenancy agreement, so those you might have to NA.
If you're not applicable, then they won't actually show in the report because it will just remove that question basically. So
Yeah, exactly that. So I'm just going through here, clicking save and
if
next. You can,
just another quick thing, Alex. If anyone wants any context about the questions, there's obviously like you'll see a question mark just on the right hand side, and we'll call them tooltips. So they'll give you a bit of context about each question to give you a bit more understanding of what's expected, basically. So
there you go. Top tip from Mitchell Hanley there.
top,
But yeah,
Mitch's top tips.
Mitch's top tips. And then
Yeah,
as you can see, any urgent or non-urgent action required. That's essentially the report done. Now I appreciate this has been a bit of a, what we like to say, a whistle stop tour. But now if I were to simply preview that report, this is the finalized version of that report prior to actually submitting it. And what you can see there is if you're sharing this with your landlord, all of those questions, they're already highlighted, they're outlined. So it adds value to your landlords when you're sharing them. And then again, you can see the images below. And then I also signed it off with a date and time stamp as well. So that would be the report completed, the report submitted. I've shown again how to use the iPad with that as well. Um, so that, in a nutshell, is a
Yeah,
whistle-stop tour of how to complete an inventory hive interim inspection with key compliance checklist questions in there as well.
yeah. Like I said, I know it's a quick whistle stop tour, but we've seen users create those management visits or interim visits in like 10 minutes, so they can literally fire through them really quickly. So they could, if they've got a backlog, they could get out to the property and complete loads in a day and just clear up that backlog.
Well, yeah,
Um,
especially when if there's nothing wrong in
yeah,
inverted commas within that property. As you saw, I'd already set up before I flicked to my iPad when I would have gone out to do the visit. I'd already set up the report, making the assumption that everything was fine. So
yeah,
then all I had to do when I went to the property is meet and greet with the tenant. It's a nice little touch point,
yeah,
and then just add a few snaps, and that's
yeah,
essentially job done. Obviously, we talk in ideals when we're showing off these things. Some tenants aren't always of high standing, so there might be multiple things to note. But again, you saw how easy and quick that can be done.
yeah,
But compliance is the key focus from this sort of
yeah,
thing,
yeah.
making sure we're all on the ball with it.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. I think that pretty much comes to the end of our live stream today. Alex, absolute pleasure. You've been absolute star and you've got everything nailed as well. Um, if anyone wants any more info, just get in touch with us at info@inventoryhive.co.uk, or you just sign up for your free trial at www.inventoryhive.co.uk. Free 30-day trial, and find out why. We've not mentioned this yet, Alex. Find out why we are the best estate agent supplier for 2022. So that's official. So yeah.
That is
So
official. We've got a
yeah,
stamp and everything.
we've got a stamp and everything. So yeah, thank you for everyone's time today. Alex, didn't know if you want to add anything else before we
No, the only
finish
thing I
today.
would say is obviously connect with us on all of our social medias. LinkedIn's
Yeah,
probably being our main one, just to keep up to date with whenever we go live with these sorts of streams. Obviously, if you're watching this video back afterwards on our YouTube or on our LinkedIn page, then please feel free to reach out if you had any other questions, because obviously we couldn't answer them live in the chat.
yeah, nice. All right, guys, thanks for your time, and thanks again, Alex. Top
Take
man.
care.
Cheers, guys.